Hello, Nick here. And I know it's been a while since I've done a video, and I just kind of got back into radio mode. I guess my interest switched back and forth between a bunch of my hobbies. A bunch. I got like two. But anyway, today, for whatever reason, I just really got interested in this radio again. JRC NRD-515. I've had it for several years and I've used it a few times. I've even made a couple of videos on it. I did a video where I compared it to that radio. So I did if you want to go back and look, it was a direct comparison, very detailed comparison between the Kenwood 5000 and this radio. And they're both great radios, spoiler alert. But anyway, so if you want to see that. But today, we're going to focus in what I realized when I did that video, I didn't know the intimate details of some of these switches that are not normal, like the Delta Tune. This one here is a multifunction switch, actually, and you don't even have to push any buttons, all right? It does different things in different megahertz ranges. All right, we'll go through that. And then, you know, how some of these things work, and some of them don't work in all modes. Some of them only work in SSB and CW, but we'll go through all that because I went back and read the whole dang manual. So, and then I got the memory unit up there, but that's very basic and simple, so we really don't need to focus on that today. But it's Saturday morning, 10:27 a.m. Central Time in Dallas, Texas. We have all the radios are on. My Wellbrook antenna stuck up in that tree out there. You see the gray Schedule 30 pipe? Well, the Wellbrook loop is wrapped around that. All right, and then I got a cable running in to a Stridesburg. And then from the Stridesburg, it runs off into different areas. And then I got a cable coming up to this Alpha Delta switch to feed all these radios. So to help us find some nice weak signals, we're going to use this ICOM 705. So let me flip the antenna over here. So you saw some of the signals pop up. And all right. So again, this time is correct. That's not UTC, that's Central Time. I don't live in the UTC, I live in Dallas. All right? We're gonna make everybody bend to our will in Texas. All right? So, you can see the bands are pretty quiet. I mean, let's tune up. I mean, my ICOM here is not even reading a noise floor, really. Barely. I don't think it's really registering. Maybe barely registering. It's less than S1. This is the signal I'm interested in. See that? That signal is super weak. I mean, the signal's not even S1. The signal moves, you know what all shortwave signals do. So that one, at some point, it does get to S1. And then who knows, maybe this meter's not working right. Who knows? Anyway, 865, 855 is super weak. All right, so let's monkey with those two first. So we need to switch the Alpha Delta. All right. Oh, I've got this doesn't have a speaker. So I got a wire coming out of the back to this Bose speaker up here. And this Bose speaker is like tuned or designed for music. And what I've been noticing is the report you'll see here is a lot more bassy I mean, if I had my preference, I wish this had a tone control and I could put a little more treble in it.
Por supuesto, la atención especial desde el inicio la prestábamos tanto a las mujeres embarazadas como a las mujeres que tenían niños muy pequeños.
So we are on AM 6 kilohertz. I guess maybe let's briefly go over the controls. Obviously modes, okay? Bandwidth. There's 4 positions on this switch, but there's only 2 filters. The last 2 were optional. So we got a 6 kilohertz, we got a 2.4 kilohertz, and then that one says 0.6, which is 600 hertz, and then the last one obviously is auxiliary. The last 2 slots from the factory standard are empty. There's nothing in them. You have to pay extra for those. I wish I could find them and get them in there, but it's not just buy a filter and plug it in. Apparently, from who I'm talking to, you got to buy a whole new board and have the filter welded to the board, and then you got to have a priest bless it, and then you got to do all this other stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh. The radio works pretty dang good with just 2 filters, but I'd like to have 2 more filters. Anyway, those are the 2 filters we're working with. An attenuator, 10 up, 20 dB down. A noise blanker, very rudimentary, on or off. Delta tune, we'll monkey with that. It's a fine tune, okay? And it does different things in different modes. A slew tuner, hold it up, hold it down. RF gain. This knob is very, very unique. I've never seen another radio like this. Obviously, it says BFO. So in CW mode, it's a BFO, which means you can alter the tone hertz, the sound of the tones, by changing that. In AM mode, it works as a pre-selector, but only on the medium wave broadcast band, which apparently the JRC defines as 600 to 1600 kilohertz. All right, even though the AM band goes down to like 510 or 5 something like that, and it goes up to 1710, they cut out the ends on each end, and they're in between 600 and technically 1599999. This will work as a pre-tuner, and in order to tune in AM broadcast stations, you actually have to use this as a pre-tuner to bring the dang station in. But that's really cool because it tends to block out a lot of the other extraneous stuff you don't want to listen to. It's really helpful and noticeable, mostly late at night. You know, if you ever turn on a simple AM radio late at night, it's like you tune in, you know, the signals are every 10 kilohertz, right? And you tune into one, and it's like you can literally hear 3 radio stations coming in all at the same time. Right? It's really hard to focus in on any weak station. Well, this helps you with that a little bit. My Wellbrook is a directional antenna, especially in those low frequencies. If it was on a rotor or a rotator, it's not. Mine is married to the direction it's in. But this would be a super DX, AM DX broadcast band rig if I had my Wellbrook on a rotor, and then I could monkey with this thing too. But we'll play with all that. Megahertz tune, fine tune. And that's the fine tune. This is your kilohertz tune. All right, so. Sounds nice. And notice how this meter is reading, you know, 6 to 8 plus, whereas the ICOM meter was not reading at all. So, what's what? What happens if we throw in 20 dB of boom? Okay. 10 dB. Noise blanker. Not that we have any impulse noises to suppress. Sounds good.
¿Cómo pueden acceder las personas a este refugio? Porque en un principio eran sobre todo las personas que
Let's go down to
venían de Ucrania,
855, which is that weaker signal.
Pero en cualquier ciudad ucraniana.
Notice the S meter. Noticeably weaker than the other station. So I think this meter always reads high, no matter where you are. That was one of the main faults. That's probably one of the only faults of this radio, is that the S meter is not super accurate. Or maybe it is just super sensitive. I don't know, but it doesn't really match any of the other radios. But it's functional, right? Maybe it's super sensitive to help you do your pre-selection in medium wave. We'll monkey with that. Very weak signal, coming in nice. Now this does not have sync, AM sync. You could theoretically do ECSS, which is tuning in sideband. Let's try it. Put it in upper. Drop the filter, because if you put it in sideband and leave it on 6 kilohertz, sounds weird. See, I'm zero beating it. It might sound a little slightly more stable because we're only listening to one sideband instead of both sidebands. But for as weak as that signal is, I think that's pretty dang good. So I did a video on this Belka. Actually, the video was about antennas, but I used the Belka as the workhorse in the radio. And I think it was Mr. Belka replied to my video. He didn't identify himself as being there, but I could tell that his name and stuff came from Eastern Europe, and so it might be a guy from Belka. Anyway, he said, "Hey, by the way, you're never supposed to run that Belka radio at 100% sensitivity." He said, because the AGC doesn't work when you're that high in sensitivity. He says, back it off 20%. He says, and then and then use that as your maximum normal operating sensitivity. He says, and then the AGC will work better, and all that kind of stuff. He says, and if you're really hunting DX, he said, turn your volume all the way up and then back your gain way off and use your gain as the volume control. And that way you can tickle in enough gain just to be able to hear what you're listening to and try to minimize on some of that static or interference. So, for DXing, great. If you're listening to, strong stations, you don't even have to monkey with that. You could just leave this up and just use this normally and everything's hunky-dory. But on this one,
efectivamente, pues a punto de iniciarse, no tenemos ningún ahorita.
All right, let's go back to the icon. Yacom sucks compared to the 515, doesn't it? Look, can't even hear anything on this thing. We were just listening to it great over there. Let's try some attenuation. Oh, I thought I could put the attenuation in here. Apparently not. I have to go here. Oh, you gotta hold it. There we go. Didn't help. We're on 6 kilohertz filter. We're mostly just using this to find signals. What's this one over here? And nothing. Nothing. Look at that little guy there. JRC 815. All right, let's check that guy out. The filters work independent of the mode, which means you can either have a 6 or a 2.4 in any mode. 2.4 is typically too narrow for AM broadcast. You're listening to it now, though. Yeah, but so some of these radios, when you reduce the gain, the estimator actually goes up, and there's apparently a reason for that. I don't understand it. I've read it in the different manuals from ICOM and Yaesu and Drake and Collins and everybody, and they try to explain it, and my ears start bleeding and my head explodes, okay? I don't understand why they do that. I really don't. See that? But if you want to get an actual indication of what the signal is, you got to have the gain all the way up, and it's basically 0. All right, but this radio is nice. All right, so let's talk about some of these other things here. So, all right, I was harping on this. Let's mess around with broadcast band. .310 is my favorite sports station.
Anything besides a punter, I would want to be as a pro football player.
Could you make a 20-yard field goal if they gave you 10 tries?
Yeah,
Probably.
I think so.
But beyond that,
All right.
I mean, you're not going to probably do anything.
See that? I tuned off.
That's what makes golf fun. Is
Watch the meter and watch this thing.
Toe to toe with the best player in the world, and you might beat him for a hole or two.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to beat him
No.
overall. You're not going to do that, but you might make a birdie and he might make a par.
That's
There
peaked.
was a point we were playing one of
Static's
our
gone.
and Ed Laura
Sounds
was
really
on
nice.
on our par 3 hole. If you made the hole, if
uh,
you made an ace, you got 10 grand.
And then technically on bandwidth filters, if there's more gain coming in, if the signal is stronger, that 6 is the filter's actually bigger because I guess it's because the signal exceeds the capability, or not the capabilities of the filter, but the boundaries of the filter. Maybe if that's the right word. I might not be using the right word. But a 6 kilohertz filter on a super, super strong signal like this might actually be 8 or maybe even 10 kilohertz in performance.
Came real close.
Oh, I
to
remember
about
that.
5 or 6 years
Oh,
ago, where it
gosh.
was maybe 3 or 4 inches away.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I said, these are the things that make us come back. You hit that
So
one
now,
button with absolute future
let's
ground.
tune down to
Let that
another
one year go
station.
shot and say, they're all the same as I think I have that in me.
820 is a powerful AM station here. All right. No signal. All right, let's hit the magic button over here, or the magic knob.
Louisville or Dallas, Fanpack.com.
Just as strong as the other one, except I had to put almost a full quarter turn of revolution into the pre-selector.
I'll get to your questions before the top of the hour. I promise you that.
So this BC tune is really cool. And it don't, like I said, it only works between 600 and 1600. So if you're in long wave below that, or if you're anything above that, this in AM mode doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything at all. It does become a BFO in CW mode to like adjust the tone. So speaking of that, let's center this out. Let's go up to that weak beacon I always chase, which they changed the frequency, and I believe it's 28,197. Ooh, did you see that? Nice flick, lucky flick. CW 2.4. Very weak. Maybe the 28 megahertz band ain't doing nothing here. So let's go to, I think maybe 14 might be able to get some CW. See, it says the BFO changes the tone, the frequency of the sound. These dudes are never there. Whoa. That dude. That dude must be my next door neighbor. Now, we've got a delta tune and a passband tuning. Delta tune. Delta tune is a fine tune in SSB and CW. Activate it with the switch, green light comes up. This probably works better in CW, it's like if you're trying to tune in the voice to make it clearer. So you use the delta tune for that. Passband tuning, most of you already know, you can move your center, the point you're listening to inside of your normal passband. So if you've got, say, a 2.4, because it only works in SSB and CW, it does not work in AM. So if you've got your 2.4 band, passband here, and your signal's right dead in the middle, so you're 1.2 kilohertz either side of center. The passband tuning allows you to shift what you're listening to within that passband. So if there's a signal here and you're hearing interference, you can take the passband tuning and move it away from it up to plus or minus 2 kilohertz. But it doesn't change the frequency that you're listening to. Okay? The better radios actually allow this feature to work in AM mode, and it works great on shortwave. If you've got like two signals that are 5 kilohertz apart. I've done videos on this before. Actually, just recently did one called The Magic of Passband Tuning. And there was a signal, two signals 5 kilohertz apart, and one was much, so if you're looking at a spectrum scope, one was much stronger than the other. And so like if you tried to listen to this one, you could hear it, but this one sounded like a fly buzzing around or a wasp bee buzzing around, and it was really annoying. And you use the passband tuning, so when you listen to this one, you move it away from this, and the crap just magically disappears. It's awesome, really is. Too bad this does not work in AM. Only works in SSB and CW. Problem is they don't type long enough for you to get anything going. See that weak one in the background's gone when I go this way? But he gets a little bit stronger. Not that powerful one, the weaker one in the back. But anyway, you can monkey with that, and you'll see how it works out. Let's go to sideband 14. Let's see if there's anything going on here. 14300, I usually start there because they got like some net where these guys are talking all the time. Let's see if these dudes are alive today. Nope. Dang.
Florida 5, Bobby Yankee, India, 3-3. The Florida 5,
See the fine tuner?
yeah, it's your Florida 5, Papa Yankee, India, 3-3, the Florida, Roger.
And I could adjust the passband, but there's no interference. There's no one else bugging us, talking over it.
Thank you so much. This is Whiskey Delta 4, Delta Alpha, November, if you are there. CQ Park on the air, CQ Park on the air, CQ Park on the air. This is Whiskey Delta 4.
But you could turn your delta tune off, and it'll lock into the exact frequency you're on. And mine sounds perfect because this radio is perfectly spot in tune. As long as I'm assuming that those hams are perfect, their radios are in tune, right? Anyway, so the point is that Delta Tune works as a fine tuner in CW and SSB, a fine tuner. And then the BFO works as a BFO in CW only to change the tone of the beats. The passband tuning only works in CW and SSB. And the directions for this radio recommend that you use fast AGC for AM and CW, and you use slow AGC for SSB. They talk a little bit about RTTY, but I don't even know what the hell that is. Okay, so I'm gonna put a piece of tape over that right there. So what else could we talk about? They said, so if you're listening to shortwave signals that are 5 kilohertz apart and one's stronger than the other, and you're trying to listen to this weaker one and you can hear the buzzing from the stronger one, they said you could switch to USB or sideband. I like USB. So you can switch to USB. You're going to have to put it in 2.4 mode. And then you can monkey with, they said, zero beat the signal using the Delta Tune to make sure you're dead center frequency. And then you can use the passband tuning to try to shift away from that other signal. The problem is I don't have two AM signals that are 5 kilohertz apart here. So I can't experiment with that. Because technically a 6 kilohertz filter, the passband is 3 kilohertz on either side of center. So if you've got two signals that are 5 kilohertz apart, you're going down 3 and up 3, and then the other one is going up 3 and down 3, so that the top end of this one is overlapping with the bottom end of this one. And that's why a 4 kilohertz filter is the best option for your secondary bandwidth for AM listening. So a 6 and a 4 are absolutely perfect. And there's a company who knows this, okay? There is a company that knows this very well. Their best radios have a 6 and a 4 kilohertz filter and a 2.4. 2.4, actually 4 kilohertz, you can listen to an SSB signal on 4 kilohertz as long as there's nothing close by to interfere. You get, some decent fidelity out of it. And it's probably great for ECSS, right? To ECSS and AM signal. But for AM broadcast listening, not for listening to music, okay? Not to, listen to your favorite rock band. I'm talking about listen to a DX, a weak station, something like that. A 6 and a 4 are perfect. Drake knows it, okay? These dudes don't know that. They might know it, maybe whatever, but 2.6 is really the only filter you can really listen to on AM. 2.4 is just too narrow. All right, so if I had my druthers, I'd see if someone made a 4 kilohertz filter and I'd drop it in the auxiliary slot. But like I said, you need 3 engineers and 2 scientists in order to do that. So, yeah. But if you got a radio like this, where you can adjust your bandwidth filters to anything you want between like 0 and 9, on AM, I got 3 options, because there's 3 filters that you hit, filter 1, 2, and 3. And so I set this at 9, full value. I set this at 6, and I set this at 4. And it's absolutely perfect for AM listening. And then for sideband, you got to change them around. I usually like to do 2.4 in the middle and maybe 1.8 on the low end and 3.0 on the top end. And for me, for my purposes, because remember, I'm not a ham, okay? So most of my sideband listening is either to do ECSS on AM signals, or it's to listen to those like utilities, like, you know, Trenton Military and, you know, Gander and Valmet and that kind of stuff, right? And so they can support a little wider bandwidth on SSB because typically there's nothing close by to interfere, and it makes them sound a little better. But that's why the ICOMs are great, because they let you pick what you want. Drakes, you don't need to pick what you want because they already have it absolutely perfect. Literally perfect. SW8, R8B, I'm sure the R7 and the R8s are the same way. Don't accept less. 6 kilohertz, 4 kilohertz for AM. That's it, baby. That will rule the world. Now, this, we're playing with this thing. We're listening to signals that are so weak. It's awesome. I love it. And they sound great. The radio is easy to operate, although what these things do in different modes, you really have to be aware of it. You got to read the manual. And then the function of this broadcast tune, the BFO turning into a pre-selector for AM broadcast is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So, yes, if I could find somehow or some way to put a 4 kilohertz filter in this thing, probably sell every other radio I own. Anyway, 37 minutes. I guarantee you guys are asleep with drool coming out of your mouth with your heads on the table, if you're even still there. All right. Thanks for hanging out.